We're standing by to hear from President Obama regarding his announcement about offshore drilling. You can see right now a live shot that we're monitoring from Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. That's Interior Secretary Ken Salazar. He's setting the stage for the president, who will be speaking momentarily. So as we wait for the president, let's get to the issue at large here. Our industry expert joining us now is John Hofmeister. He's former president of Shell Oil Company. These days, he's CEO and founder of Citizens for Affordable Energy. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir. As we wait for the president, let's talk about what we do know to expect at this point, and that is that he will be allowing for offshore drilling on the east coast of the United States. What does this do for firms like the one you once ran? What does this do in terms of the new drilling opportunities?
Well, I think any new access on the offshore is good for the industry, good for consumers, good for the nation's energy security. What we need to find out, of course, are where, how far offshore, what is the potential of those fields, which has to be investigated by seismic exploration. And so we have some period of time before we know whether this is really a good thing or not. The industry knows that there are reserves offshore the East Coast, but how much and how commercial they will be, those facts remain to be seen.
So it's not really, what I'm taking away from what you're saying, it's not necessarily as billed as positively as we expect here, because you don't know what the oil companies will be getting access to exactly. There has been hesitation on the government front of things, state by state, to having drilling occur. What are you hearing on that front? Would this actually be possible for President Obama to get through if there is some resistance on the state level?
Well, I think the good news, and where the president, I think, will indicate the drilling could occur, is offshore states that have already indicated their interest in drilling off their shores.
So it's Florida,
so Virginia, for example.
Virginia?
Florida. Well, Florida's been a difficult one, where for most of the last 10 years there has been anti-drilling as their policy. But more recently, particularly with high gas prices a few years ago, people in Florida have come round and are now more willing to consider offshore. But South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, these are all possibilities. But again, the commercial quantities, we don't know yet. We have to discover that. But I'm concerned. And what I'm concerned about is, on the one hand, the president giveth, and on the other hand, he taketh. For example, just in the last administration, Bristol Bay finally had the presidential moratorium lifted. I understand from the press release that Bristol Bay is going to be off limits again. What drives the industry crazy, and what really disturbs consumers when they understand it, is we don't have a steady policy. We get a different policy depending upon which administration, and in the energy space, that doesn't work.
Right.
Energy takes decades to play out, and changing the policy every 2 years or 4 years doesn't help consumers in this country one iota.
Right. Well, from what we understand, Alaska, they're sort of looking for further information as to what's going to happen there. Haven't completely taken it off the table. If I could ask you to put your current hat on for the job you're holding now, talk to me a little bit about how this changes, perhaps support or not, within the industry for the broader energy agenda and for perhaps cap and trade. There are some saying that this is a bargaining chip that will help the corporate support build for some of the other initiatives that the president wants to put forward here.
Well, my main interest these days is the affordability of energy from consumers, and whether those are corporate consumers or whether those are everyday citizen consumers. And the only way to get affordability assured in the energy space is to produce more energy. We continue to ration energy or promote energy that is way more expensive than energy we know about. So hydrocarbon energy is being artificially inflated by restricting access to it. The new access we're talking about today is really not very much new access when all is said and done. By continuing to push out Alaska, the new environmental studies in the Chukchi and Beaufort Sea, we've studied those. We know what the environmental impacts are. Now we're going to study it again,
and
which pushes it out into the future.
Sir, did the speech you just heard from the president himself change your position in any way? I didn't hear much in there specifically about the when and the where, other than the Gulf of Mexico and the South Atlantic as areas for exploration.
Well, I agree. There was really no specific. There was a general direction, which I think is smart politically for the president in terms of positioning the legislation that he referred to in the last part of his remarks. One of the items that really needs to be explored by the American people is the disinformation that the president continuously uses about the reserves of oil in this country. He promotes the clean energy economy, and no one's against a clean energy economy, but we have to ask at what cost.
What do you mean about the reserves specifically? You think that that his numbers are inaccurate?
His numbers are representing the fact that for 30 years, the industry has been prohibited from exploring for more oil and gas reserves in the 85% of the Outer Continental Shelf. The 2% number he cites, which is down from a 3% number he used to use during the political campaigns, reflects a fact that exists in terms of proven reserves. He never refers to probable reserves. Probable reserves are in the hundreds of billions, and if we count unconventional oil, trillions of barrels in the United States of America. So we're sending a missignal to the American people about how much oil we actually have.
Well,
while we promote the clean energy economy, and nobody ever talks about how much it costs for the clean energy economy.
All right.